All right. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to What She Says Sports. All right. So class is in session. We're getting ready to take a deep dive into the practice squad. We're gonna have another holistic view of the NFL so you can understand what's taking place with Shedeur Sanders, black quarterbacks, and the Jim Crow culture that has thrived in the NFL for decades, but is now face forward. You have to have a holistic view of the NFL to see these things. So that's what we're doing today. As you can see, the thumbnail, Free Shedeur, that's the question mark. It's hashtag Free Shedeur on X. Fans are getting fed up with the way Shedeur is being treated, not just in the draft, but also in Cleveland. There was what? NFL cut day just happened, right? And he didn't get cut. And I said, if he doesn't get cut, he has leverage that he doesn't know that he has, right? And meaning, Stefanski, the one that tries to prove that Shedeur doesn't belong, that is hell bent on holding Shedeur back with Dylan in front of Shedeur, and people pointing out that, Stefanski has his own agenda, but that he isn't working independently. That Haslam, he wasn't my pick, didn't care for his words with Shedeur, is really one of the owners that colluded against Shedeur in the draft to take him off the board so that he would be humiliated and fall. And the humiliation is continuing in Cleveland. Again, you need a holistic view to see why in the draft Shedeur was the quarterback targeted to be held back, right? Y'all know my theory, 17 to 32. And it took place where? In the draft, right? They held it off at 16 with, instead of Shedeur being the 17th black quarterback, what is the case, right? It's Jackson Dart and Tyler Shaw. So what just took place, right? This is our updated chart since the last time we looked at it, where 17 to 32 is still taking place in the NFL, right? The Saints didn't want to get Shedeur, didn't want to get a first round quarterback that's black and long term. They've never had either one. They've never drafted another quarterback outside of the first round since Archie Manning, which means they've never drafted a black franchise long term QB, a starter, right? So what happened? Spencer Rattler ended up going from the yellow to a starter. Now, there was a competition that Spencer Rattler was in that he shouldn't have been in, because Spencer Rattler, who also is a 5th round pick, was made to compete with Tyler Shaw, who failed at the combine. But they wanted to keep giving Tyler Shaw opportunities to get that number 1 spot. But, I think to keep their fans from protesting, they decided to go ahead and name Spencer Rattler, who wears the number 2, QB1. Now, as a NOLA girl, I'm happy for that, but he should have never been competing. The fact that there were only black quarterbacks competing against lesser talented QBs who were white. Tyler Shaw should have never been the surprise in the draft. But instead of 2 black QBs with Shedeur and Milroe being drafted high and next after Cam, the 3 off the board, they wanted it to be 2 white QBs. Why? 17 to 32. Half of 32 is 16. That's Cam, who was drafted to Tennessee, who was also made to compete, right? As little quieted as it was kept, the number 1 overall pick was made to compete against the guy that failed last year. If you didn't need a quarterback, you shouldn't have drafted Cam number 1 overall. And it was dysfunctional to have Will Levis on the roster as he failed. Well, he got injured, so he got moved out the competition. And then they wanted him to compete with the number 3 guy who never had a chance to be a starter, right? So what happened to Cam and trying to manipulate 17 to 32, who the majority of the starters are in terms of race, it was shameful to have the number 1 pick, who's an inherent QB1, to compete. You don't draft somebody that you can't utilize at the quarterback space. But they wanted to take him to keep from looking like they were being racist, because they knew what they were going to do to Shedeur. So how would it have looked if they were outwardly racist and didn't get Cam? Then they did what they did to Shedeur, which was devalue and humiliate him. And then they pushed Milroe down in the draft. You would see the racism. You would see it. And now when people say, but Cam was drafted, yes, he was drafted, but he was also made to compete. That is why Cam is the only quarterback going into this season that it was announced that he's the captain. Why do you think it is that the guy that had to compete, the number 1 overall pick, a black QB, after Tennessee wanted to trade that pick, didn't even want to get Cam, wanted to keep Will Levis, but Will Levis got hurt. So again, they settling and they're like, okay, Cam, you're our guy. You have no choice because you don't believe in Brandon Allen. And you drafted Cam number 1 overall, knowing that you wanted Will Levis to be the guy. That's why Will Levis is still on the roster. And the only way he's moved out the way so you could do right by Cam is injury. It's injury. It's not a coincidence that Cam is the only QB to be named the starter going into the season as a QB1 overall, and the only QB that the NFL just announced that he's a captain. And why you think they're doing that? Just like in the draft, right? I have to appear that I'm not racist because I know what I'm getting ready to do to Shedeur. I know what I'm getting ready to do to some of these other quarterbacks. So as you can see, it's 16 or 32, just like it was in the draft. That's why Shedeur is sitting at QB3, and that's why the Cleveland Browns went out and got another quarterback. So we're going to take a holistic view at all these depth charts because what just happened on cut day was basically the payroll got cut. Damn near every team cut a 3rd and a 4th string unless the 3rd string was injured and they couldn't move it. And all of those guys have been either dismissed like DTR. He's now on a negotiating list for Canada. They cut his legs off in his career starting in Cleveland. That young man was a 5th round pick. They shortened his NFL career to 2 years. They didn't develop him when he got drafted to Cleveland. They were like, yeah, he won the preseason games, of course, against the 4s and the 3s. Just like Dylan, set up to fail. But when it came time to play against Baltimore Ravens, they didn't start Deshaun. They didn't start PJ Walker, who was known to have experience. They started their 5th round pick, who they said was a developmental project. So I question, is Cleveland and Stefanski even developing these quarterbacks? Right? And when they show that they're not doing good, why are they left in the game? Like Deshaun Kaiser. And I know Stefanski wasn't there, but this is a Haslam culture. This is a Haslam culture. And as hard as they work to keep Shedeur out the 17th spot and willing to push up Tyler Shaw and Jackson Dart, and Tyler Shaw failed, and Jackson Dart was propped up in the regular season. They have a vested interest, the NFL does, that Shedeur fails and Jackson Dart succeeds. That's why you hear the coach saying, no, we're going to start with Russ. They don't want him to be the starter. So when you start hearing Jackson Dart is going to start by October, you know why that is, right? So Russell Wilson doesn't play the majority of the games and is labeled the starter. The Giants have never had a black starting quarterback, but they do now because they drafted Jackson Dart instead of somebody else that could be the starter because of their Ole Miss connection through the Mannings and the New York Giants and the GM and the guy that made the prank call wearing the Ole Miss sweatshirt. That was all a setup, all of it. So when they got Russ, they didn't expect him to be the starter for the entire season. They still don't want him to be the starter for the entire season. Tyler Shaw already failed, and Spencer Rattler has to replace him. So he was a waste of a draft pick. They don't want to cut Dylan Gabriel. They'd rather prop him up so he's not a waste of a draft pick. And they're going to push up Dart and prop him up and pick plays that he can succeed in rather than just let him play football because they don't want to admit that he could be a waste of a draft pick instead of passing up on Shedeur, who they should have drafted. But they wanted to avoid a black long-term QB. So they're going to have to settle for Russ and get their first black starter with a 1-year contract. And then everybody's talking about the Manning sweepstakes. I'm like, he hasn't even proven anything yet. But that's okay. Texas getting ready to play Ohio State. But it ain't going to matter because Tyler Shaw didn't prove anything either. And he got drafted ahead of Shedeur. This is about black quarterbacks. And you have to have a holistic view in the draft to see that Shedeur was treated the way he was, not because he's Coach Prime's son. They didn't tell you they took him off the board. Boomer Esiason didn't tell you we took him off the board because he's Coach Prime's son. They said he was entitled. They parroted what the New York Giants said. What's the New York Giants problem? They never had a black starting quarterback. And neither has Cleveland as their franchise QB long term. So that's what the draft was about. Holding it off so black QBs don't become the majority, which was the expectation because the trend was trending upward since 21, 22, and 23, 24, with Jacoby Brissett being the 15th Black starting quarterback, Cam Ward, the 16th. And then there's Shedeur and Milroe, 17 and 18. Milroe is buried on Seattle's depth chart at the 3. They handled him in college coming out the SEC, making it seem like he's trash, but he and Dart have the damn near identical QBR rating. They just didn't want a black QB to come out the SEC and be in the first round of the draft. You have to have a holistic view of the NFL to see the racism. Because when you just look at Cam going first, you think that's the end of it because that's the draft. No, you got to look at the fact that they made the number 1 overall pick compete with the guy that failed. And you have to wonder, why is it now that they're coming out and saying, oh, he's the starter. But they didn't tell you he was competing. You had to read to know that. They didn't talk about that competition because it's preposterous. But they did talk about the competition with Spencer Rattler, which also should have been because Tyler Shaw fell in the combine. And they didn't want to talk about this fake competition with Shedeur. Why is it just black quarterbacks are competing? Why is it black quarterbacks are the only ones that have to prove anything? Daniel Jones didn't have to prove a damn thing. He just went over there, got sent over there to take Anthony Richardson's job, who's also black. And just like DTR, Anthony Richardson going to find himself out the league when his guarantees are up. DTR didn't have any guarantees. But he went to Cleveland. They didn't develop him. What did you hear them say about Shedeur? Oh, he's going to have to sit. He's only a 5th round pick. Then why the hell is it that DTR was forced to play against 2-time MVP Lamar Jackson? Because they knew he was going to fail. Just like Shedeur in that Rams game. But Shedeur didn't fail. Shedeur was supposed to throw an interception so he could be even with Dylan. So they could justify putting Dylan in front of Shedeur. I mean, what difference does it make? He already, Shedeur, won the 2 damn competitions that existed and you still didn't care. You just want to go with Dylan, and it's not because Dylan is the preference for Stefanski. It is because the culture in Cleveland doesn't support a black franchise QB long-term at the number 1 spot, drafted number 1 or drafted 144. They thought they could pigeonhole him there, which was ridiculous. Which means they don't know talent and they don't give a damn about it. They knew coming out of training camp, Shedeur Sanders was going to make it to the front. Flacco is listed in the bottom tier of quarterbacks coming into this season. They know he's only good for half a season. Cleveland is the only team with a top-heavy QB roster, including the practice squad, when everybody else just cleared house at the 3 and the 4. We're going to take a look at that. So understand, the sense of urgency to keep this number at 16 with black starting quarterbacks is still there. Because we have a season that's already getting ready to start. And before that, we have 2% battery lifers dropping like flies. They cleared the 3s and the 4s in Minnesota, right? Why did we get Carson Wentz and put him at the 2? What did he prove that he deserved to be at the 2? What did Pickett prove that he could leave Pittsburgh, come to be the 2 in Cleveland, and then go be the 2 with the Raiders? Not a damn thing. This is about optics. This is about who the majority of the black starting quarterbacks are. And you have to have a holistic view to see the racism. All right, so we at 16 to 32. Let's look out for some injuries. So I'll show you some things on other teams so you can see that they cleared the payroll for the 3rd and 4th QB guys, unless it was an injury or they don't believe in a starter. Nobody else has a top-heavy roster at the QB other than Cleveland, which means they planning to move somebody out. They don't believe in 2 of their quarterbacks. So they went and get a 5th guy on the roster. I don't even know why Deshaun is taking up the 4th place, because to be honest with you, are they going to pull him off an injury reserve, knowing the insurance company approved to pay them Deshaun Watson's salary? So for all of the people crying that Cleveland is paying Deshaun Watson, no, Cleveland is not paying Deshaun Watson. The insurance company is paying Deshaun Watson. So on the practice squad, they just added a guy named Bailey Zapp, who was cut from another team. The Chiefs and Patriots can't keep up. Why is he sitting over there on the practice squad? So like in 2023, when they rotate all of these quarterbacks, they're going to go get Bailey Zapp off the practice squad, just like they did Flacco. And they handed the season to Flacco. So Bailey Zapp, who's also white, is an insurance policy in case Flacco don't work out. If he was good, he would still be on his current team. So basically, the owners have decided to do what, right? The owners have decided to clear house at the 3s and the 4s. Why not Cleveland? Let's take a look. So we get ready to look around at some different depth charts so y'all can see what's really going on here. All right. So this is the Raiders depth chart, okay? As you can see, the Raiders have Geno Smith as a starter, who's black. Kenny Pickett is put over there behind him, who's questionable. And again, how does he go from doing absolutely nothing in Cleveland at the 2 that he didn't deserve when DTR got demoted when he went over there to Philly? And now he demoted out the league. But Pickett keeps getting all these opportunities to just take up a spot. He just a holding place. He just a holding place. So when they draft next year, because they cut their 6th round pick, Cam Miller, right? He might end up on somebody's practice squad. He maybe already has. But the point is, if 5th and 6th round picks are getting cut, and if the 3rd and the 4th is getting cleared out, barring injury, why is it Cleveland is still holding on to Shedeur the way Stefanski has tried to convince people that Shedeur is, 1, doesn't belong in Cleveland like he don't belong in his neighborhood, and 2, he's not good. The Browns media and the Browns have set up and told us that he's not good. He's not their future. Why they didn't cut him? Keep that in the back of your mind. So Kenny Pickett is sitting at the 2 and didn't do anything to earn it. And their second string, Aiden O'Connell, was pushed down, and now he's on injured reserve. So as you can see, they're choosing not to pay for a 4th spot. They obviously have no choice to pay the 3rd spot. All right. So let's just go over here to another team. All right. So this is the Browns, right? This is their defense. So this is their depth chart for this year, okay? Joe Flacco is a starter, didn't earn it. Dylan Gabriel definitely didn't earn it. Shedeur Sanders, who should be the starter, is sitting at the 3rd. Sitting at the 4th is Deshaun Watson, with Bailey Zapp sitting off the roster on the practice squad. I don't even know why they have Deshaun Watson sitting right here, when in reality, this is Bailey Zapp. So they're putting Dylan in front of Shedeur and Zapp behind him, so that if Flacco, when he tap out, because he hasn't played a full season since 2017, right? Since he hasn't played a full season since 2017, when he tap out, Dylan is the guy. But they don't believe in Dylan. So I'm going to go get Bailey and make him the guy. And Shedeur is just sitting on my roster. We're going to look at the expectations for a 5th round pick, and you're going to see what it is they're planning to do. And I want you to pay attention to what happened to Dorian Thompson-Robinson and his career, how his legs were cut off underneath him with Stefanski as his head coach, not developing him, but setting him up to fail. So as you can see, they have 4 quarterbacks in a 5th that's not on the roster, okay? Remember, Cleveland rotated 5 quarterbacks in 2023. All right, so we have right here, make sure. All right, so now we're looking at the Dallas Cowboys. As you can see, the Dallas Cowboys only have 2 quarterbacks. Why? Because they're like, we're not paying payroll for the 3rd and 4th, right? So Dak is their starter. Milton is their second. They already know what they have in Milton, and Dak is over there, right? So they're like, we have space in case we got to get somebody else. But just like the other 30, 31 teams, barring injury, with the exception of the Browns, who will be 32, barring injury, they have cleared house on the 3rd and 4th, so they don't have to pay payroll. Remember, the lower rounds make about $800,000 to $900,000 a year. But on the practice squad, it's anywhere between $12,000 and $17,000. Let's just say $200,000 a year. So I'd rather pay practice squad, 1 person, $200,000 a year, than 2 people, almost $1 million a year, or $2 million a year, because we're talking about $950,000 times 2. So instead of paying that, I'm gonna just pay 1 person. So why didn't Cleveland opt for that? Because they can't cut Shedeur, but they set up to, when they get to the point where they get the call from the other owners who took him off the board, to cut him. So just keep paying attention. So this is Arizona Cardinals. Do you see a 3 and a 4? No. Why? They just cleared house. They just cleared house like every other team. What does that mean? It means that the owners have decided they don't want to pay the third and fourth payroll to just sit there. And it's not a bad business decision. It's smart. I'm gonna go with the 1 and the 2. See, they're not even worried about injuries. Why? They probably got somebody on their practice squad making 200,000 rather than two people making a total of about $2 million. Because on the practice squad, you don't dress out. But Shedeur is expected to dress out because he's the third string. They know exactly what they're doing by having Shedeur at the third string. Because if Shedeur was on a practice squad like Bailey Zapp, he would be expected to get in the game. But with them having Shedeur sit at the 3 instead of off the roster on the practice squad, which is where you think he would be because they say he's not good, right? They want him to dress out. And why do you think that is? Why do you think they want him to dress out? Because they succeeded in setting him up against the Rams. And just like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, they're going to throw him into a game that they think he's going to fail. So Jacoby Brissett, who was the 15th QB coming into the 2024 season, you can see he already demoted to the second. And he's put behind another black quarterback, Kyler Murray. I told y'all about the pairs. So we talked about the pairs. Pay attention to the 1 and the 2, especially when a quarterback at the 1 is black. So as you can see, another team who has cleared house on the 3rd and 4th. The owners determine who the face of their league is going to be. The owners determine they don't want to pay payroll for the 3rd and 4th, so cut it. Andrew Berry is just a go fetch. Andrew Berry was told, according to Kimberly Martin at ESPN, to go get Deshaun Watson. So that ain't on Andrew Berry. And I told y'all he don't have that kind of power. I'm sure when the owners decided to take Shedeur off the board, they had a plan for him. So Andrew Berry, go fetch and get Shedeur. So he had to trade up 2 people in the same round to get somebody else. The owners decide who the face of the league is going to be. And if they don't have comfortability with black franchise QBs being drafted in the first round, then you ain't going to be their franchise QB. Because even though Deshaun Watson was paid $230 million, he wasn't a franchise QB. Not for Cleveland. Yeah, for the Texans, but not for Cleveland. And then when Cleveland went and got before Deshaun Watson, they didn't go get a first round franchise QB. They went and got one from the second round. Now, who does that? Even Jalen Hurts wasn't expected to start as the second round number 53 pick, but they threw in a true developmental player who's supposed to be a project for a year or two, just like Dorian Thompson-Robinson. They threw him into the fire and let him go 0 and 15. So they have a way of setting these players up to fail when they don't want them to be on their roster long-term as a black QB. And I'm talking about Cleveland. So as you can see, they clear payroll on 3rd and 4th for the QBs, right? All right, so let's move on to another team. All right, so we have the Vegas Raiders. All right, so Geno Smith is at the 1, Kenny Pickett at the 2, Aiden O'Connell said barring injury. So that means they don't expect much out of him. I don't know how much he gets paid on injury reserve. Don't know if he have guaranteed contract, but it's really Kenny Pickett and question mark and Geno Smith and really question mark Kenny Pickett. If you know Geno Smith's story, then you know that they devalued him in the draft. He was supposed to be a first round pick. They made him come back the second day. They sent him to trash team after trash team after trash team for the first 3 years. They made him a journeyman. He finally got his opportunity in Seattle with a head coach, right? And once he was successful in Seattle, guess what? He got moved. They put Sam Darnold in his spot and forced him over to where? To the Raiders with Pete Carroll. And people say, oh, that's good for Geno Smith. Geno Smith ain't even cleared $100 million yet. But Daniel Jones has. And yes, he's over there with Pete Carroll because Pete Carroll like him. But it shouldn't be a system of likability. It should be a merit-based system. According to Seattle, they wanted Geno Smith to stay, but they didn't value him enough, even though he had the same record as Sam Darnold, which was good. They didn't value him enough to pay him. So now he over there in Vegas with Kenny Pickett behind him and Aiden behind him. So if he hurt, I don't know what the hell they're going to do. I'm sure they have somebody on the question mark on the practice squad. All right, this is the Houston Texans. Also a curious scenario. Why do they have a third? Because they don't believe in C.J. Stroud. Why? Because they set him up to be sacked 52 times last year. They even asked C.J. Stroud last week on one of them big box networks, do you have any confidence in your O-line? The look on his face. The fact that they know he was set up to fail. Why? Because he put this team on his back like Jada Daniels in year one and got played by the refs who got fired recently against Kansas City. And they didn't want him to do it again in year two. And they don't want him to do it again in year three. So that's why you need to pay attention to what the hell is going on with Jada Daniels this year. Because one of CJ's NFO linemen got traded over to Washington where Jada Daniels is. So that's why it's 3 people here. Because they ready to move CJ to number 2. All right, so the Green Bay Packers depth chart. As you can see, they cleared house. They probably put somebody on the practice squad. As you can see, Jordan Love and Malik Willis at the 1 and at the 2. That's it. Just like everybody else, they cleared house. They feel like they good. They can trust Jordan Love. Malik Willis is a capable backup. No need to pay the 3rd and the 4th guy. All right? Keep it pushing. This is the Rams depth chart. They have 3. Why? Because Matthew Stafford has a back injury. They don't want to list him as injured. So what do? They have 2 people just in case his back taps out. I told you when people were discussing about Shedeur going to the Rams, they were like, we good. So they cut their 4th. And they only have Stetson Bennett at the 3 and Jimmy at the 2 because they know Matt Stafford, who's 37, who has a back injury that kept him out the entire preseason, might tap out. So you see why you see a 3rd? Barring injury or I don't trust the QB situation. Keep paying attention. Washington Commanders depth chart. All right, so Washington has also 3, not keeping a 4. Even with injury, they still have 3, so technically they have 2. Mariota, I think, used to play for the Falcons, and he just tried to quit, but he couldn't quit because he had a contract. So they have him in front of Josh Johnson. I think I saw another depth chart where Mariota isn't on it, and it's just Jaden Daniels and Josh Johnson. So pay attention to his O-line. As you can see, when we look at his O-line, at left tackle, they have 1 person and another one on IR. Makes absolutely no sense. Brandon Coleman is the 1, and then you got Chris Paul or somebody like that. And they have 2 people with somebody hurt at the 3. So the left tackle is really the 1 guy. Brandon Coleman is 2 people with depth is injured, right? And then you have Tyler is the only center they have. Nick is really the only guy they have because the 2nd has a Q by it, and look at the 3rd is a ghost. But then when it comes to the right tackle, I have 4 people. Now you tell me how you expect to win a game with this type of mismatch here. And then you got 4 on the right tackle, but you got 4 tight ends. You got 4 tight ends, 4 on the right tackle. Look at this. Left tackle, left guard, center. How do you expect to go through the season with 1 center? So you're not prioritizing your O-line. Okay, keep an eye on Jaden Daniels. That's all I'm going to say. He's going to be like C.J. Stroud potentially, probably in the same situation. And they're going to be asking him, does he trust his O-line? It's not like these reporters don't know what's going on. Then you got in Tennessee, Cam Ward, thankfully, the starter, due to injury. As you see, Will Levis is over here at the 3. So they got 2 quarterbacks. They got Cam and somebody else. So they need to invest in Cam and make sure he's protected. And if I'm not mistaken, they said that the Titans went out and got an O-line to protect Cam. I don't see nobody. I don't. 1 left guard, 1 center. I have 3 right guards with the first one questionable, so I got 2. And I have 2 right tackles. So I don't have a left guard and I don't have a center. Okay. And I basically have no depth. They willing to go with 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers. But at most times, it's 2 for the O-line. You see, that's not protecting the quarterback. Pay attention to Cam. The Saints. All right. So Spencer Rattler won the competition. The Saints did the right thing. Maybe the anniversary of Katrina and all the racism and the aftermath of Katrina was too obvious to ignore. So this would have been more of the same. They have 2 quarterbacks. They cleared out the 3rd and 4th on payroll. I'm sure they got somebody on the practice squad that they'd rather pay less money. Spencer Rattler is at the 1. Tyler Shaw is at the 2. Tyler Shaw should have been cut. He was horrible. But you see, he's still there. But Spencer had to fight like hell and wait to get what he actually earned. See, black quarterbacks have to earn it. Too many white quarterbacks, it's just given to them. In Tyler Shaw's situation, he was propped up because of his relationship with who it says, Archie Manning. So let's go to and see who he has on his line. So they have maybe 3 to 4 wide receivers, running backs, tight ends. They have 4 tight ends. Left tackle, Kelvin Banks, they drafted him. At least they got him at the start. So really, they got 2 people, 2 left tackles, 2 left guards. At least they got 2 to 3 centers and 1 right guard. I don't know why they only have 1 right guard. I feel like you need to have that. But maybe somebody is ambidextrous and can move over. Maybe the left guard, somebody can play right guard. And then right tackle. Again, he really is probably going to be a problem. So I have 1 guy at right tackle. All right. So Spencer Rattler probably going to make a run for it. I don't think it's coincidence he wearing the 2. I think he wore it in college, but it says a lot, right? They tried to avoid a black QB long term, and even if it's for 1 season, but they ended up with it anyway, and he wearing the 2. So hopefully y'all can see Spencer Rattler right here. This is his chart. Just the right guard is just 1, right tackle, just the 1 after the other guys hurt. It looks like they just have depth at left tackle and left guard. That's it. Oh, I guess you could count center. So the Saints are in better shape than the Titans and some of the other teams. So let's see. Let's move over and let's go to the Chicago Bears. All right. This is a situation to keep your eyes on. Okay. Most people don't know that Caleb Williams tried not to come to the NFL. He tried to avoid the NFL, wanted to go to the UFL or anywhere else because, like his dad said when he was in college, coming out number 1 and going to the Bears wasn't it. That's like Cleveland has the number 1 pick now. There are parents out there who don't want their sons to end up in Cleveland, just like Caleb's father didn't want his son to end up in Chicago. Caleb ended up getting sacked 68 times. Chicago has a revolving door, just like Cleveland. When it comes to quarterbacks, they're the 2nd most team with a revolving door at QB. So as you can see, they kept a 3rd and it probably want him to get better. Why? Because they just paid number 2 from a D3 school $10 million. What does that mean? They're going to try to move Caleb out. Pay attention. Let's see what he has for O-line. All right. So they went out and got a whole new O-line for Caleb, right? And that's supposed to change things, as if we don't know. Him being sacked the most, 68 times, was an accident. It seems like retaliation because he tried to avoid the Bears. He tried to avoid the NFL with reports saying that the NFL is like, we're going to draft you anyway. Saying that because his dad wanted him to stay in school, they were going to make his life harder at some point. Sacked 68 times seems like retaliation to me. And then you have the left tackle. So they have 2 guys, a 1st and a 2nd. So they have 2 people all the way down. And this is supposedly a new O-line. And even if the names change, they supposedly got a new O-line. But if you have Bounty Gate or what happened in the Miami Dolphins with Richie Incognito bullying a young black 24-year-old lineman named Jonathan Martin, how do we know that his O-line didn't bully him at the behest of the head coach? Because that's what happened with the Miami Dolphins and Richie Incognito, his head coach. The head coach spurred on the bullying of a white player by a black one. A 30-year-old Richie Incognito at the time was asked to bully Jonathan Martin, who was a 24-year-old black lineman. Ran him right off and he quit midway through the season. Mission accomplished, right? So it needs to be investigated to see who's at the roots of Caleb Williams being sacked 68 times as retaliation because he didn't want to go to a team that was retaliatory. He saw what happened to Justin Fields. That needs to be investigated. All right, so we got 2 more. All right, so we have The Carolina Panthers. Why did I use this one? Because we just looked at it not too long ago, and they had 4 people on the roster. So it lets you know that what did they do? They cleared house. They cleared house. So the Carolina Panthers had Jake, I think it's Jack Plummer, and they had Bryce Perkins, which they just called up for a week, basically. Remember, he was the UFL MVP, and he went undrafted by the NFL when he entered the NFL draft somewhere around 21 or 22. Then he went to the Rams, and they cut him. Drafted, destroyed. Drafted, destroyed. That's what it's called. So now you have Bryce Young sacked excessively as a Heisman winner, just like Caleb Williams. The difference between Caleb Williams and Bryce Young is Bryce didn't try to fight coming to the Panthers. But you see, he was still sacked excessively, like C.J. Stroud, who also was a young black rookie starting quarterback, right? So the young black rookie starting quarterbacks caught hell. So now they're going to move on to something else. Devaluing black quarterbacks in the draft is not new. What happened to Shedeur was the most extreme case of what happened to Lamar Jackson. What happened to Shedeur in Cleveland with the competition is the same thing that happened to Joe Gilliam and Terry Bradshaw. Shedeur won the competition outright. Joe Gilliam beat out Terry Bradshaw in training camp for the starting job. I think they let him go 6 games and took the job for no absolute reason away from Joe Gilliam and gave it to Terry Bradshaw because of the racism. It's documented. So Andy Dalton is questionable. So really, Bryce Young, he just got to go unless they're going to pull up somebody from the practice squad. And I think somebody's on the practice squad over there. The guy who went to Tennessee, Herndon Hooker. They didn't put him at the 3 and the 4 because they didn't want to pay him. But he just off the roster at the 5 to be called up in case, I don't know, something happened to Andy Dalton. Because if he already a question mark, shouldn't you have a 3? But this is about payment. This is about payroll. That's what this is about. So the last one we have, this situation right here. Okay. When the season started, Anthony Richardson was the starter. And that whole situation from the draft is curious at best because Anthony Richardson, from what I can see, I don't know if in high school, college, he even played a full season except the last season he was drafted. Anyway, Daniel Jones didn't compete for Anthony Richardson's job. They just gave it to him. Daniel Jones was sitting over there in Minnesota behind J.J. McCarthy, along with Sam Darnold. So instead of having Daniel Jones compete, Anthony Richardson ended up getting hurt. They just took his job, even though Anthony Richardson healed up. And in a preseason game, like we saw Shedeur get set up to hurt, it should be investigated if the O-line that allowed Anthony Richardson to also get hurt and dislocate his pinky was asked by the head coach or somebody else to do the same thing that Richard Incognito was asked by the head coach to do to Jonathan Martin. But this time, instead of attacking one of your O-line mates, you set the quarterback up to fail. So was Shedeur Sanders the only quarterback set up by the head coach? The reason nobody really talked about it with Anthony Richardson is why? Because he don't have 4 million fans and followers. But Shedeur coming in with 4 million cast a light on the holistic situation in the NFL and ask, who asked Kevin Stefanski to set Shedeur up? Who asked the O-line that we saw as a goon squad in Cleveland? Who asked the O-line in Indianapolis to set up Anthony Richardson so Daniel Jones can unjustly take the starting spot? Daniel Jones has failed at least 6 whole years. Made more than Geno Smith, more than $100 million. Like Kenny Pickett, why is he constantly getting an opportunity at the 1 or the 2? He should be on the 3 at the 4. They just drafted Riley Leonard, who just came out of college. But it was so important to have Anthony Richardson move the hell out the way. Then why you didn't put Riley Leonard up there? Daniel Jones is not a veteran that has succeeded, that can give you veteran experience. And I heard that the Indianapolis Colts fans are upset about it. They upset about it. Anthony Richardson just got drafted. Like DTR, I don't even think he's been in the league 2 or 3 years. But Daniel Jones can fail for 6. Trevor Lawrence can fail for how many? So that's it as far as the depth chart is concerned. As you could see, Shedeur is in a situation unlike the rest of the league that, Most of the 3s and 4s are cleared out. Deshaun Watson shouldn't even be sitting here. This is technically Bailey Zapp, but they don't want to give you the appearance of being what? Going out and getting another white quarterback. Why they didn't sign? Why they didn't sign number? Who was it? What was the guy that just left? Did he not want to come back to this circus? You know, the media in Cleveland want to call Shedeur fans a circus. You know what they don't want to say? They don't want to say they don't give a damn what black NFL fans think. So they calling it a Shedeur circus. As if Shedeur's fans are all black. They don't want to admit that black NFL fans have a problem with the way Shedeur is being treated. So do white NFL fans. But they want to cast it off. Instead of being accountable, instead of holding Cleveland accountable, they want to stand with the racism because they are also Kevin Stefanski's neighbors. They also live in the 86% former sundown towns that are 86% white, where 6 out of 10 times black players, black people get stopped, and 2 were players for the Browns. So the Cleveland media has the same feelings about what's happening to Shedeur as Haslam does, as Stefanski does. So now that you see a holistic view of the NFL, you can obviously see that they got too many quarterbacks in Cleveland with 5 sitting off the side. If they put Bailey Zapp right here and everybody else is clearing the 3 and the 4, then it's obvious you should have cut Shedeur. Why won't they? Why won't they cut him? Because they say he's not good. Why, when the other teams clear out the payroll at the 3 and the 4 barring injury? You know what that means? Shedeur should be gone and Deshaun Watson should be right here. So why did you get Bailey Zapp? So technically there should be 3 quarterbacks on the roster with somebody on the practice squad and Bailey. So that means Shedeur not going to go to their practice squad. They don't trust Dylan. Is that why they still have Shedeur? Like you saw with the rosters that have 3, because the number 1, they don't trust the number 1. Well, they got 4, so that means they don't trust the number 2. They say Shedeur not good, but he got to dress out. Why you didn't put Bailey Zapp right here at the 3 and put Shedeur on the practice squad? Why you just didn't cut Shedeur and make Bailey the 3? Those are all questions that need to be answered and investigated. Because based on what Stefanski has put forward, Shedeur is not a fit for his system. He doesn't belong. Like he don't belong in his neighborhood. He's not good. You can't say he's a trade asset because a lot of people just got rid of their trade assets, right? Did we not just see all these other teams clear out the 3 and the 4, which are trade assets? Why is Dylan not your trade asset? Why is your trade asset Shedeur? Here's the thing. Cleveland didn't draft Shedeur. He got sent there. And Andrew Berry and Stefanski can't cut him. Haslam and the other 31 owners are still colluding against Shedeur from the draft, and they're not trying to teach him a lesson. They're not trying to teach him a lesson at all. What do they want? They want to make sure. They want to make sure that this don't happen. That Shedeur don't end up over here at 17 or 32. They could cut him and he could go somewhere else. Canada plays for 21 weeks. They play until October. They could cut him like they cleared house with the 3s and 4s. Deshaun Watson be the 3rd because he on injured reserve. They could cut him and he could go to Canada. They play clear through October. Why won't they cut him? Why won't they cut him? Because they can't. Because they can't. And you see, they just set Shiloh up and baited him, right? Then there's DTR that they keep comparing Shedeur to. And the reason the media keeps doing that is because they know what happened to DTR. Dorian Thompson-Robinson. In the league for 2 years. Not developed at all by Stefanski. You saw what that development process looks like. Giving Dylan most of the reps. And he still failed, but he's sitting at the 2 like Pickett was. They didn't earn those spots. The NFL is not a meritocracy. When you take a holistic view of the NFL, it is not a meritocracy. In fact, Jim Crow lives there. And he's been in the basement, but now they got him propped up on the front lawn for everybody to see. They want to treat Shedeur like they did DTR. We're going to put you out here as the emergency backup 3 so you could fail. And then next year, we're going to sit you on the bench again to humiliate you some more. And then we're going to trade you and we're going to get rid of you. In 2 years, you're going to be gone. DTR was traded to get Kenny Pickett. Now, that's one hell of a swap. Kenny Pickett has proved nothing. DTR didn't even get the opportunity. That's what they want to do to Shedeur. Why? Because they've done it so many times. That's why they're announcing Cam Ward as the captain of his team, so they don't appear racist. And they want to gloss over the fact that they made him compete. And they handed J.J. McCarthy the keys to the team, and he haven't proven anything, so much so that they went and got Carson Wentz off his couch and put him at the 2, and he didn't prove anything. All of these players they keep going to get and put in front of these black QBs. And they taking these black QBs and they just tossing them out in 2 years. So why? They don't have to pay them retirement benefits. But you have vets wanting to be on the practice roster because they can't keep up at the 1 and the 2. One player has decided, I don't want to be on the active roster. Put me on the practice roster. Let's talk about why. So understand that on the practice squad, you get paid, right? You get paid, I think it's anywhere from, let's see, 12 to 15,000. Let's see. I have some numbers here to share. All right, so this is the practice squad. First and foremost, this is what is attractive to people, especially if you're going to get cut. And this is better than not being on an active roster or being cut. Practice squad players make $13,000 per week or $234,000 for 18 weeks. That's not bad, right? It said veteran players with over 2 years of experience make a minimum of $17,000 per week or $315,000 for 18 weeks and a maximum of $25,000 per week or $450,000 for 18 weeks. So it's supposed to be based on experience. So let's take Derek McClendon. Okay, Derek McClendon was just signed to the practice squad for the 3rd year. He's a veteran, so he should make anywhere from $300,000 or $450,000 for the entire season, right? That's definitely cheaper than having people on the roster on payroll sitting at 3rd and 4th on the depth chart, right? So that's what makes the practice squad attractive. Now, they could put Shedeur on the practice squad. He's expected to make maybe $750,000, $850,000 because he has a signing bonus of $143, which I heard they don't get to December. He can go to the practice squad and make $234,000 instead of $750,000. Wouldn't be expected to dress up. If they go to the Super Bowl, then he gets a ring. That's not a bad deal. That's not a bad deal. A lot of people will quit their 9 to 5s and rather do this, right? So this is why the practice squad is attractive. As of right now, I haven't even heard that Shiloh is going to make the practice squad. I'm waiting. If y'all hear something, let me know. So keep this in mind, right? That's what the practice squad, this is why people, look at it. Cameron Silvercraig, this is great for him. Will Shepherd, this is great for him. And they get to go and develop. That means you're a long-term project. That means the team looks at you as somebody that could be valuable in the future. And if somebody get injured, you're expected to go out there, right? And I think you get like 3 evaluations. So that's what the money is for people who were wondering. I know people have asked. That's what the money is, okay? Let's see. So this is what a 5th round pick is, but let me see. I think I have another list of practice squad so y'all can have. Here we go right here. Practice squad basics. So just so y'all know, practice squad players practice with the team. They do not play in games unless they are elevated. See, and it's something else that I cut off. It said practice squad players are paid per week. You just saw the money and can be released at any point during the season, right? So with Shedeur not being good, I don't know why they just wouldn't put him on a practice squad. But instead, they chose to carry 4 QBs on the roster, 1 paid by an insurance company, and then Shedeur, Dillon, and Flacco. So Bailey Zapp is the guy that's going to be on the practice squad for the season, but can be released at any point, right? Practice squad players are free to sign with other NFL teams. So people were saying, put Shedeur on the practice squad and somebody else can come and get him. They said he's not good. The practice squad is to develop. They haven't cut him. Why you don't put him on the practice squad? Because you don't want somebody else to get him? I don't think anybody can get him. I think it would be even more of a tell if they put him on a practice squad and nobody gets him, just like in the draft. And people would refer back to, oh, the collusion is still taking place. Nobody wants to get him. You would see it more clearly if he were on the practice squad. It said a practice squad player cannot sign with his team's upcoming opponent unless he does so 6 days before the game or 10 days if the team is currently on a bye week. Okay, so you saw that there's a lot of 3s and 4s. You saw that some teams have 2 quarterbacks and they don't have a solution except for calling up a player from the practice squad. But there is a scenario where Shedeur could be on the practice squad like Bailey Zapp is, right? That they could switch places, but they don't want that. Why they don't just switch places? Put Shedeur on the practice squad, and before they play another team, they got 6 days. Let's say the Cowboys that they played, and Jerry Jones could pick up Shedeur. The reason why Shedeur is not on the practice squad is because it would be obvious if you sit him there that nobody comes to get him, and it will be a reminder to what happened in the draft. So understand all the 3s and 4s that were cut. The owners make that decision. I don't want to carry this payroll. That's not a GM job. The GMs are go fetch. Go get me this person. Go get me that person. And while they might not care about who's at the 3 and 4 at wide receiver, the owners do care about the quarterback position. Because why? It's the most important position on the team. It determines who the face of the team is going to be. So they have Shedeur sitting outside of the 1 and 2 at the 3 in the middle. And they want him to dress out so Stefanski can throw him into a game again, call bad plays, and have him set up with who? The second string O-line? Because you don't really have a lot of options, right? But I can take 2 third stringers out there and set Shedeur up and say, oh, they just got to the team. They didn't go through training camp. It's just the chemistry is not there yet. That's how you get you a part-time goon squad. And you don't hold them accountable. They just got here. So they set his Shedeur up to be thrown into a game like DTR. And they expect him to fail. Now, if I'm on the other team, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I already made the team. Cut me. I can't catch or I can't block or something. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it because that's what they want. Understand this. They could have cut him with the rest of the 3s and 4s. So why would you keep him and want to set him up to fail? Because humiliation. Isn't that what the draft was about? The Ole Miss guy with the connections to the New York Giants set up to humiliate Shedeur with inside information. So they're trying to run it back again. The humiliation. They already devaluing him by having him at the end of the depth chart. They setting him up to be humiliated by forcing him to dress out. And they just gonna toss him into a game knowing they haven't developed him. I think they were upset that he self-developed despite their lack of development. And you know this because he worked with Gage and they took Gage and put him up to 2, which is supposed to be a slap in the face to Shedeur, who's a 3. They know Shedeur helped to develop Gage. They know Shedeur helped to develop Luke. They moved Luke up too. And like I said, Deontay Johnson got cut. If Luke was still here, Luke and Gage would be the 2s like they are now. And Shedeur would be behind them. And Dylan has not developed anybody. They know Dylan is not better than Shedeur. They know Dylan can't hold it down if something go down with Flacco. They know that. That's that leverage that Shedeur has. That's leverage. They could have propped up somebody, or they could have went and got somebody better than Dylan. They could have cut Dylan. Why won't they do that? Cut Dylan and keep Shedeur and go get Bailey Zapp and put him in front of Shedeur. Let me see you do that. They not crazy. They know who Shedeur is. He was going to be their franchise QB, right? No, they pre-drafted him under false pretenses. And I said the longer Shedeur is on Cleveland's roster, the truth is going to come out. So now we're moving on to a new truth. They can't cut him. We learned that Haslam didn't draft him like people thought. Now you're going to learn that they can't cut him. Barry can't until Haslam tell him to do so. Stefanski can't, or he would have did it already. This is the owners doing, once again, trying not to appear that they colluded against him in the draft. Because they know in court, that's a slam dunk. They know what Boomer Esiason said. They heard what Eric Dickerson said. So they just want to harass and humiliate Shedeur. Maybe they want him to retire from the league. And then they can say, well, we tried. He ain't going nowhere. Shedeur know that the battle is between God versus Kevin Stefanski right now on the field. And Haslam ought to know it's God versus Kevin Stefanski and Haslam too. Shedeur ain't going nowhere. They want him to be in the same situation with Jonathan Martin. Except for the bully is not another teammate on the O-line. The bully is the head coach. And as you can see, the GM won't cut him because he can't. Now you know he didn't draft him. He got sent there. They all agreed on where he would go. They don't even want him to make money for the team. They want him to dress out so he can fail. So that's why people are saying free Shedeur, because they see what's happening. They see what's going on. So let's talk about a 5th round pick and what the expectations are, right? It said for Shedeur Sanders headed into the 2025 NFL regular season, Cleveland Browns rookie Shedeur Sanders is ranked as the 3rd string quarterback on a team's depth chart. Now, mind you, the 3s and the 4s were cleared out, so he should be gone, but they don't want to let him go. Keep that in mind. This is what leverage looked like. Effectively placing him low, which is devaluing him among all NFL quarterbacks. It keeps him out the top 20, I do believe, top 10 for sure of NFL quarterbacks, even in fantasy. It says after being drafted in the 5th round, he sits behind starter Joe Flacco and 2nd string Dylan Gabriel. What did I show you? The only reason there's a 3 on a roster, and most times you didn't see any 4s. The only reason there's a 3 is due to injury or you don't trust the quarterback situation at starter. Think about the Rams, think about Garofalo, and think about Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett technically shouldn't be there, but they don't trust the back situation, the back injury of Matt Stafford. So Shedeur is sitting at the 3 because the Cleveland don't trust who? They don't trust the 1 or the 2. They know Flacco. How many touchdowns? 13 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. And he only played how many games? They know what's up. And they know they had to prop Dylan up. And I don't know how you do that in a regular season, but I guess we're going to find out. Because Philly definitely did back down and play their 4s and 3s. So Dylan didn't have to have any tough competition. So you got to be crazy out of your mind to know that Flacco can't get it done all season, if not any part of the season. Because remember, Flacco looked good because he played against the Rams 4s that don't even exist on the roster no more. Let that sink in. Same thing with Shedeur. But he was set up by Stefanski and the play calling and the Goon Squad O-line that is also dismissed. Let that sink in. They know Dylan can't hold it down. I guess he just going to pass off the ball to Quishon Junkins and Jerome Ford. That must be what they thinking. But you know they thinking, we better keep Shedeur because Dylan can't get it done. They can't just pass off the ball the whole game. That's when they're going to start getting attacked at the pass. So that's why Shedeur is still there, because they need him. They brought in Bailey Zapp. They could have put Bailey Zapp right there in front of Shedeur. But they want Shedeur to dress out and Bailey Zapp to be in street clothes. Are they trying to make Shedeur feel some pressure by having Zapp on the practice squad? Then they don't know Shedeur Sanders. He's unbothered when it comes to pressure. For somebody that they scouted at the number 2 position as many times as he was sacked, then they ought to know. You can't be the most accurate QB in all of college football, sacked the most, damn near the most, and be worried about pressure. You see, he was still willing to stand up and throw that ball in the Rams game. Yeah, people wanted him to pass it off, but that ain't the play that Kevin Stefanski called. Kevin Stefanski set Shedeur up to pass the ball just like he did on 4th and 1 with the Panthers game. So Kevin Stefanski was daring Shedeur to call an audible so he could have a reason to dismiss him like the Bucs did Shedeur Sanders. So they need him because Dylan ain't that guy. And they put Dylan out there and it don't work out. They fans going to be crawling, half of them. Half of them. That's why they have so much belief in Joe Flacco. But not realistically. So it says positional outlook for Shedeur. This is what it should be. We're going to see what guys say, but this is what it should be. On the bench to start. Though Sanders will be on the game day roster, he is not expected to see action early in the season unless there are multiple injuries. The Browns' depth chart is currently set with Flacco as the starter and Gabriel as the backup. We already saw injuries, right? How convenient. Long-term project. As a fifth-round draft pick, Sanders is considered a long-term developmental project, just like DTR. Analysts note that it is rare for rookie quarterbacks picked outside the early rounds to make a significant impact immediately. So Sanders is not considered behind schedule. So understand this. He's not really supposed to be out there. He's only supposed to be playing in the regular season due to injuries, right? All right, let's see if that happens. Now, mind you, when DTR played Baltimore, I think they pulled Deshaun Watson out of that third game. Deshaun Watson won the first two games. They said something about his shoulder. Then they put DTR in, but they had PJ Walker on the roster. So that's when they put DTR in to fail against the two-time MVP. Deshaun Watson came back. And then he got hurt later on. So they using Deshaun Watson as a pawn. So let's see if Dylan or Flacco is conveniently hurt for Shedeur to play one of their tougher games, which means they expect him to fail. Stay tuned. It said preseason promise. It said Sanders impressed some observers during the preseason with his poise and accuracy, suggesting he could eventually work his way into a more prominent role. He demonstrated solid pocket presence and an ability to make downfield throws. It said, though he also took many sacks in college. Hold on one second. I can't see it because, hold on one second. He took many sacks in college that he will need to clean up. Now, what did Kevin Stefanski set Shedeur up to be in the game? That was important. The Rams game. Sacked. Right? Sacked. Because he knew that he could use it to justify putting Dylan at the 2. Well, let's see who conveniently gets hurt. Like Deshaun Watson. So that the fifth string, who's a developmental multi-year project, have to go up against and fail. Stay tuned. So common expectations for a fifth-round QB, and the NFL needs to be held against this in court. It's that a lottery ticket pick. By the fifth round, most quarterbacks with starting potential have been selected. Teams are no longer looking for a QB of the future, but are taking a chance on a player who has a standout trait or performed well in college, but is missing other key elements. All right, let's just start right there, right? We know that's who Shedeur is not, but now you know how they weaponize the rounds in the draft. Spencer Rattler, who's now QB1, because they chose to pick Tyler Shaw when they could have got somebody else. He's the undeniable QB1 because Tyler Shaw is so bad. So that's God making the crooked places straight. You didn't want Shedeur, but you got another number 2. And Spencer Rattler is elite. So imagine making those two compete after Shaw failed in the combine and holding Rattler back the way Shedeur is being held back with Shaw as the guy. Then you can see the racism, especially when you made Cam compete, but not J.J. McCarthy. So, yeah, they let Spencer Rattler go. They announced Cam as the captain when no other announcement has been made about any other team players being the captain. You know why? Because what I'm getting ready to do with Shedeur. If I discriminate against Spencer and I discriminate against Cam and keep trying to bury him so can't nobody see him, people going to start putting 2 and 2 together. But most people don't have a holistic view of the NFL outside of the analysts who are paid to say whatever supports the NFL, who are not paid to hold the NFL accountable. So the expectation for Shedeur, even though they want him to dress out, they got Bailey Zapp. They could have got him at the 3. They trying to set Shedeur up. It said a third string of practice squad developmental player. A fifth-round quarterback typically begins their career at the bottom of the depth chart, possibly as a third or fourth quarterback. The initial goal is to earn a roster spot or place on the practice squad to continue developing. Now, remember, they just got rid of the 3s and 4s. They could have sent Shedeur to the practice squad. I felt like they threatened it with him, and he said, I was on the scout team at Jackson State. So they're like, oh, okay, that ain't going to work. That's not going to humiliate him because he already did that. We didn't know. Well, then come on out here, and we're going to have you to dress out, and somebody going to be injured, and we're going to put you into a game where you fail because we think we underdevelop you, even though he's self-developed. That's the plan because he should be on the practice squad. You see the 3s and 4s are cleared out, barring injury or not having trust in the QB1 that's injured or could be facing an injury like Matt Stafford. It said backup potential. Over time, the ideal development path for a 5th round is to evolve into a competent long-term backup. They would be someone who can step up for a few games if the starter is injured without the offense completely collapsing. Now, that's not anything you would expect to happen this year, right? Unless somebody get injured. And as you can see, Stefanski put Dillon second. So that means if some Flacco go down, then who should it be? It should be Dillon. Let's see if that happens. Because when Deshaun Watson went down, they put in a 5th round long-term developmental QB who should have been on the practice squad and DTR. And he's out the league in 2 years flat because they set him up against Baltimore. And when they moved him over to Philly, he got a demotion. He was second on the depth chart behind Watson. That's not where a developmental QB should be, right? Who's second on the depth chart in Cleveland right now? Dillon. So they played in his face. And they think they're going to do it with Shedeur. It is Guy versus Kevin Stefanski and Jimmy Haslam and the whole Browns organization, including Andrew Berry, who's the go fetch. We have cleared up a few things. We have cleared up that Shedeur was not Haslam's pick and is in hostile territory. We have cleared up that Stefanski has a Jim Crow agenda. We have cleared up that Barry refuses to protect him and instead chose to lure him into that toxic, racist environment. We have come to understand that too many of their fans have the same agenda, which is why they showed up to watch a black QB drafted in the 2nd round go 0-15 and pit against a black head coach. So now we see what Cleveland is and why Shedeur was sent there. Because they believe he has absolutely no chance to survive with Stefanski and his Jim Crow agenda and Haslam and the other owners who colluded against him in the draft. Because they're using these 5th round expectations to hold him back. But he's not being treated like a 5th round QB, is he? Neither was DTR. And there's a pattern here with black quarterbacks in Cleveland. And Shedeur is facing the same discrimination in Cleveland as the other black quarterbacks. So let me know when you hear somebody else named as one of the team captains, because they are doing this so they don't appear racist. They picked Cam number 1 overall, even though they barely talked about him before the draft, made him compete after the draft, wasn't willing to name him the starter. But it says in the article, J.J. McCarthy was given the keys to the starter and the path behind him and the pressure moved out the way with Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones going somewhere else to block Milroe in Seattle and to take Anthony Richardson's job in Indianapolis. This is blatant racism. And they set it up because their roster is already too many people. No other team has a roster that look like that. They know they have too many people. They know Deshaun really shouldn't be on that roster. They know Zap should be on that roster. That's why the media is saying things. Because they know what's up. Asking if Bailey should come in and be the emergency 3rd QB. Do it. I want to see you do it. Because technically, Shedeur is a 5th round pick, right? Well, he should be on the practice squad. So put him where he belongs. Nah, they don't want to do that because it's not going to bother him. But they want him to dress out so they can throw him into a game so he can fail, even though it's supposed to be Dillon. Dillon is the 2. So that's basically what it is. They want to treat Shedeur like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but the problem is DTR was the 2. They have Shedeur set up at the 3. If they were smart, Shedeur would be the 2, and he go in to play Baltimore when Flacco can't. But now that should be on Dylan's task. So let's see if he ends up with a magical injury. So everything I'm telling you sets you up to look at the league holistically, see the racism, see the Jim Crow culture, see the plan and the plot against Shedeur Sanders and why he's still on the roster, why he's not on the practice squad. That's where he should be because he's a 5th round QB, right? Until it's time to set him up. So let me see what y'all are saying. So now you have been informed. You can look forward and see what's going on. So you should know when you hear Dylan has a magical injury and look at who the team is playing to see what they planning to do. Bailey Zapp should be the 3. Put him in there. They want to humiliate Shedeur, but that's not humiliating enough. Hey, Valerie, how you doing? How you doing? There are 183 of us. Hit the like button, hit the like button, hit the like button, please. Share the video. People are saying they wanted to get certain people. Just hit the share button and forward it to who you wanted to go to. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Thank you so much. Hey, Val, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Hey, everybody. It said, pouring more energy into a positive narrative. What they say is more important than what I say. Facts. And again, it's Guy versus Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Barry and Jimmy Haslam because they all in on it. Gretchen say free Shedeur. Facts. It said his brand is his leverage. God had to show out first with record sales. Now Nike has extended his contract. I am sure he made his QB 1st round money. I'm pretty sure he did too. His brand is his leverage, but we're talking about why it is he's still on the roster. You can have leverage in more than one area. It said, hey, good food. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Unfortunately, this is what corporations do. Facts. It is. Valerie, how you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. It said, I feel like the NFL has taken Coach Prime's statement about his children and they upset about it. None of the Sanders are kissing butt. I just hope that they hope this hate and control doesn't cross over to CU. It didn't in the draft, right? It already did in the last draft. So I don't know here. It said 12 is going to get his chance. It's not about him getting the chance. It's not about him getting the chance. We know he's going to get a chance. Did he have a chance against the Panthers? Did it matter? Did you see what happened to him against the Rams? Okay. It's not about getting a chance. It's not about that at all. Asking him to dress out as the 3 with Bailey Zapp sitting at the 4 or the 5, really the 4, is making sure he gets set up. It's not about getting a chance. It's not about that at all. This is about accountability. This is about accountability of the Cleveland Browns organization, starting with Kevin Stefanski. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. It says Stefanski isn't developing anyone or anything. It sure seems like it, Serena. This is rife organizational malpractice when it comes to DTR and Shedeur. It's on display for all of us with the QBs in Minnesota and the Giants. Facts. That's facts, Dwayne. That's facts. That's facts. It said being from New York, the tri-state area, it's so upsetting when you look at how the Giants treat black players, especially quarterbacks. Right. And that's what I'm saying. You have to have a holistic view to see that this is happening to a lot of people. I said it after the draft. What happened to Shedeur in the draft has happened before. It happened to Lamar Jackson. But what happened to Shedeur was most extreme because of what was at stake. 17-32. You see they sitting at 16, just like in the draft. That's not a coincidence. They're not going to let it go no further than that. You're going to see what happens if somebody get injured. You're going to see. It said, I'm not watching the NFL. They're going to learn. A lot of people feel that way, Dwayne. A lot of people feel that way. I believe something is going on now against Shiloh. Other former buffs waived are now on practice squads. Right. It's obvious. And imagine if I was to cut Shedeur today, you would see it, right? You would say, oh, this is against Coach Prime, right? So either they want that or they don't. They can't figure it out, but they can't cut him because they would have cut him by now. But their roster is set up to cut someone. They have 5 QBs. You see, most people have clean house on payroll with 3 and 4. Watson is on IR. unless they willing to pull him off the roster, which he shouldn't be on there. It should be Bailey Zapp. That's why you went and got him. Maybe they don't want to be obvious with it. It said it's always healthy to have competition. So the Titans didn't necessarily do him wrong. Yes, they did, Ken. The QB1 position, first round in the draft, is inherent QB1. If it was healthy to have competitions, JJ McCarthy will be competing for his job. Daniel Jones will be competing for his job. He wouldn't just take Anthony Richardson because the O-line let him get hurt. So it's not fair to force only black players to compete. That's called discrimination. So that's the problem. Tyler Shaw failed in the combine. Why the hell is Spencer Rattler even competing with him at all? So it's sitting at 16-32, just like when the draft ended. It says Shedeur is in a red state. Ponder on that. But there is one thing about my guy. People may be looking at it as Shedeur is humiliated. I mean, yeah, because, like God said, you think you using Shedeur. I'm using Shedeur against you. I wasn't kidding when I said this guy versus Kevin Stefanski and Haslam. I'm not kidding at all. It said, just watch how this story ends. There you go, Valerie. There you go. It said players should band together and fight against unfair treatment. They're not gonna do that. Did they do that with what was his name? Colin Kaepernick? They're not gonna do that. They're not gonna do that. They've been working too hard. They're expected to be individuals. Hell, the first string team was intimidated from even associating with Shedeur because they wanted to set it up that the wide receiver QB combo is Flacco and Jerry Jeudy, which is why Jerry Jeudy was sharing a locker with Flacco. It said they waived Pickett in favor of Shedeur. He's the third string now. No, they did not. That's why they went and got Bailey Zapp, because he's a veteran, to replace Pickett. It had nothing to do with Shedeur at all. At all. You crazy if you think that, because why is Dillon the 2? Shedeur is the third string so he can dress out and get here and play in a game that they're going to set him up to fail in. You already saw it happen with the Rams. Yep, they say they haven't traded him because people say that they making money. That's what they say. But from what I heard, his jersey has fallen to the third best-selling jersey. So maybe they just going to wring the towel out until they get everything. Thank you, Vibe. How you doing? How you doing? Thank you, Valerie. It says Shedeur actually not in a bad position as a rookie because Flacco will be gone by week 4 and Dillon's a rookie. Okay. Again, Bailey Zapp. Bailey Zapp. Why you think he there? Bailey Zapp. Flacco came off the practice squad in 2023 to close the season. This is just a repeat of 2023 with DTR playing against a team that they wanted him. They thought he would fail against. And you see he's out the league. Boycotting the Browns. A lot of people feel that way. Case in point, it says Shedeur will start for the Browns in November. Okay, CJ. This is some nasty work in Cleveland. It is. It is some nasty work. And a lot of people are choosing to be in denial. But like I said, we gonna see, right? You gonna see. This is a repeat. I don't know what y'all think Kevin Stefanski is. Maybe some kind of grand wizard, but he is going to run back the 2023 season instead of Dillon being DTR. It's expected to be Shedeur. Why else would they want him to dress out? You saw it in the preseason. If Dillon injured, then Shedeur can go. Just pay attention. Calling it out. Thank you. Calling it out so you know what you're looking at when it happens. I promise nobody is watching Cleveland with DC and Flacco. We'll wait. Have time today. Yep, Dwayne. Case in point, it said don't watch the Browns unless 12 is playing. And did that what happened in the preseason game, the Rams game? People didn't tune in till they knew Shedeur was coming out in the third. And that's what makes sense, right? And there's several Browns fans that say they boycotted. They should, but them season ticket holders is the problem. That's the problem. Mate say, I live in New York and I already disowned the Giants the minute they didn't start a draft Shedeur. Dart is not what they are propping him up to be. Right. They strategically call plays he could succeed. I don't know how you expect to do that in a regular season, but they going to try it. They going to try it. Shedeur's in the best spot to succeed. Okay. Again, Bailey Zapp. Why you think they went and got him? You know, y'all act like y'all didn't sit here and watch Shedeur be in the best spot to succeed and win a competition twice, and it didn't matter. Why would it matter now? Why would it matter now? Cleveland has the first pick next year already. That's why they didn't care about trading Travis Hunter away. So they want to get their quarterback out the next draft. You have the receipts. Facts, Dwayne. Did the research. Good afternoon, Roger. How you doing? It said not rooting for the Browns until Shedeur starts. Right. Yeah, the Browns are they just not that team. They just want to be Jim Crow. They just want to have Jim Crow culture. They want to intimidate their players. They want to divide their black players. They want to pit them against each other, but they don't want them to be the black quarterback first, not first round, but then also not long term. They don't want a black franchise QB. That's why all of this is happening to Shedeur, because he would have been the 17th quarterback out of 32. But then in Cleveland, he would be a black franchise QB long term. They don't want that. They're not going to even put it out there for fans to say, oh my God, let's not draft anybody next year. That's why they traded Travis away, so they could get their pick next year. You saw the expectations for a 5th round is to be a permanent backup, except for when you DTR. And Deshaun Watson magically gets hurt, but then come back after you ball out, after you fail against Baltimore. They had PJ Walker, just like they got Bailey Zapp. Hell, they had Tyler Huntley, just like they got Bailey Zapp, but they put DTR in there so he could fail, so they can move him out. Free Shedeur, facts. Free Shedeur for real. Yep. And here's the thing. They should have cut him. Based on what you saw with the 3 and the 4, tell me they shouldn't have cut him. So they have plans, and it ain't for him to succeed. What coach does develop QBs in the modern era? Allen was Allen at Wyoming. Lamar was Lamar at Louisville and got the Heisman Trophy. Hurts, it say already stellar. Prescott, Wade, Phillips. See, they know Shedeur don't even need. James is right. They don't develop these QBs. So when you go get a 5th round QB or a 2nd round QB and you put them in against the 2-time MVP, you know they're going to fail because you didn't develop him. He's supposed to be a long-term project, but they don't want to pay that money. You saw they clean house on 3 and 4. Unless they don't trust the 1. And Cleveland got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Because I'm going to put Bailey Zapp in front of Shedeur and grab him off the practice squad. The only game Shedeur going to get in is the one they think he going to fail. Folks need to completely boycott the NFL. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. How you doing, William? Yep. It said Daniels, already a boss at LSU, before claiming coming to DC. Only developing I've seen is Purdy under Kyle Shanahan. Everybody else has been failed, moved around, or was already good in college before the NFL. Right. So let's talk about the Heisman winners that came out. Lamar Jackson, Bryce Young, Caleb Williams. I don't know about Justin Fields and CJ Stroud, but what I do know is Bryce Young put that team on his back and took them against the Kansas City Chiefs trying to get to the Super Bowl. And then in his 2nd year, he gets sacked excessively. Bryce Young got sacked excessively. Caleb Williams got sacked excessively. Right? Lamar Jackson been colluded against 3 times. Deshaun Watson was straight up set up after he asked for a trade. Now he over here in Cleveland and they using him like a pawn or a scapegoat. They think they can use him however they want to because not Haslam. The owners agreed to pay him $230 million. Now that you know that Barry is just the go fetch it. They don't care what wide receivers he probably gets at the 3 and the 4, but they do care who the face of the team is going to be. It's not a coincidence that they went and got Bailey Zapp. Why they didn't get DTR and put him on the practice squad? Bailey Zapp used to play for them longer time ago. DTR, why they didn't go get him? Because he's black. I don't know why y'all think that Cleveland is this town. You got to look at the culture in Cleveland itself. You have to look at where the Browns want to move to. They want to move to Brook Park, which is surrounded by former sundown towns, converted to suburbs that have mostly white people. Boycott the NFL. That's what I'm seeing. It said, we understand that Shedeur is just a rookie. That's not the point. We're talking about the unfair treatment. Right. It's funny how some people say when Jaden Daniels come in, it can start, but Shedeur got to sit. It's because they want Shedeur to sit. If Jaden Daniels can come in and ball out, CJ Stroud can ball out, then why the hell does Shedeur have to sit? You ever wonder? It should be investigated as to why those rookies, as the numbers were climbing towards black quarterbacks being the starters between 21, 22, 23, and 24, you should investigate as to why the hell they were sacked excessively. So they can justify not drafting these guys coming out in the first round, which is what they're doing now. You can only get away with having black quarterbacks sacked excessively without somebody realizing the pattern. Now, what is it? The competition. You don't draft the number one QB overall and make him compete with the guy that failed. You just don't draft the quarterback. Keep the guy that failed. Tyler Shaw failed in the combine. He should have never been picked in the draft, but his relationship with Archie Manning. Same thing for Jackson Dart. They use their relationships. They don't give a damn about the talent. And black quarterbacks are thinking if I'm the best, they'll pick me. No, they will not. Not in this modern day and era with letting Jim Crow flag fly freely and sit them at the front door saying it's going to be this. You know what it is when you get here. No. Pay attention to next year's draft. It said even Dylan knows he's better. Even Dylan doesn't believe he's better than Shedeur. Right. He probably going to freak the hell out when Flacco can't get it done. Again, Guy versus Kevin Stefanski. That's just understand. Shedeur already good before the proof is seen and watched. Right. And they look at what they want to do to the best and why they drafted Cam. So you don't see that what they did to the best is racist. And why Spencer Rattler had to compete because they didn't want him to be their quarterback. They wanted a friend of Archie Manning to be their quarterback. That means they don't give a damn about talent. Tyler Shaw was the 8th ranked QB. Money, right. People say he there because of money. I don't think it's the money. I don't think it's the money. I think if he leave and go to Canada, who's still playing, then he can go there and we going with him. That's one. I don't think they give a damn about the money. You talking about billionaires. They don't care about a few million. They really don't. They really don't. They'll sit him there, and if he get drafted after the CFL's last game or when the last game get ready to start so you don't see what's going on, don't be surprised. They know he can go to Canada and ball out. Yeah, he going to make less money, but chances are they want him to ball out. Thank you. Thank you, Freeman. I appreciate it. It says Shedeur is the only one. Shedeur isn't the only one. No, it's about black quarterbacks. Understand, it's about 17 to 32. It's about black quarterbacks becoming the majority. They discussed the trend from 21, 22, 23, 24. They don't want to talk about it in the 25 because then you would see the racism. It's funny how they want to let Jim Crow fly as their culture out loud. They've been doing it behind closed doors. It's been there. But they want to sit him out on the front porch for everybody to see. But at the same time, they're making strategic moves so you don't see the racism because most people don't have a holistic view of the NFL. It's that one of the other O-linemen is probably a backup center, I guess. We'll see who end up on the depth chart. Hey, Gracie, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? They're going to sabotage all black quarterbacks to get injured with suspect O-lines. No, not all. Eventually, but not all at once. Not all at once. Look at CJ Stroud. Look at, I don't know what the hell happened with Justin Fields, but look at CJ Stroud. Look at Bryce Young. Look at Caleb Williams. They went and got him a new O-line. Now, they just paid his backup from a D3 school $10 million. Why do you think they did that? They went and got a new O-line because the last one set him up. If I pay his D3 backup $10 million, I'm expecting Caleb to fail. And I want to say it's Caleb's fault. But it wasn't Bryce Young's fault. You know, they won the Heisman, right? The NFL, I told y'all, black quarterbacks are in an abusive relationship with the NFL. And now you see it. See, they don't even want to let Shedeur go, and he the number 3. which means he should be on the practice squad. They went and got Bailey and put him on the practice squad. So that blocks Shedeur from moving to the practice squad. So they're going to push Shedeur out there like they did DTR, but that should be Dylan. Dylan is the 2. Let's see. Keep paying attention. And they try and rank Lamar's O-line high, knowing damn well it's Lamar and his legs that make his O-line stats look good as they do. It said Ronnie and Linderbaum is his only real protection he ever had. Oh, really? Let me see if I still have I don't know if I had the Ravens up here. Let's see. I have Washington. Let me see if I can get the Ravens up here real fast and see who he have. Because they said that Huntley didn't want to come back to Cleveland. I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't blame him if he didn't want to come back to Cleveland. I could see why he didn't want to come back. Why would you? Why would you come back when you see what they're doing to Shedeur? I wouldn't want to be a part of that. He realized they were pitting him against Shedeur. He realized that. They cut him the next day knowing that he was going to be cut. So it looks like here, the Baltimore Ravens, let's see, they have a 1 and a 2 when it comes to left tackle. They have a 1 and a 2 left guard, 1 and 2. Let's see if I can share it so y'all can see it. Let's see. Let's see. I'll share it. That way y'all can see what it is that I'm looking at. Let's see. Baltimore Ravens. Here we go. So where they get to Lamar is not let him get to the Super Bowl. They're like, look, we know you good. You can make us some money, but we ain't gonna let you get that Super Bowl. So let's see what happened this year. And they'll let him get it if everybody's on to the racism. They'll do that. Again, they want to let it fly, but when people start catching on, they also at the same time want to set it up so that you can't see the racism. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to try to function this way because you're gonna get caught eventually. You're gonna get caught. All right, so again, they have 2 quarterbacks. Lamar is the Q, so Cooper Rush gonna have to get out there at some point. But the left tackle, okay, we have 2 left tackles, 2 left guards, 2 centers, and you have 1 and a possible on the right guard, and you have 2 right tackles. So your tight ends, Mark Andrew is the starter. He was the one that messed up damn near the whole game, and they sent him sent the pass towards him, right? And you saw what happened. And then Isaiah Likely and Charlie. So the GM said it. We're not making no changes. They didn't care about moving Mark Andrews out the way. See how many times people get a chance to fail on the biggest scale? You think Lamar Jackson get an opportunity to fail that way? No, they were trashing him during the game and trashed him after the game, saying what? He can't win the big games. But as you could see, Mark Andrews is still right there. Why is he not moved out the way? At some point, you better take a chance on the 3. Then put in somebody that already failed, because it's not about that. It's not about that. It's not about talent, and it's clearly not about winning. Why would you go back to Mark Andrews after that failed, miserable performance? Hey, Mac, how you doing? It said most of the old linemen are capable of playing both positions or multiple positions. Yeah, well, they need to have 2 solid. I mean, you at least need a first string and a second string. You can't have the first string with the second string questionable or on IR. That means you have 1 person and you know that person gonna tap out. That's how you set up your quarterback, not having an O-line. Chicago and Cleveland are gluttons for punishment. Yep. The top 2 teams with revolving doors at quarterbacks. Can we get the lights up? Thank you, Gracie. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Did Michael get traded to the Packers? Not sure. Somebody could look it up. Yep, all of the black QBs are supposed to end up like Tua with multiple concussions. Actually, they don't even want them around that long. As you can see, DTR 2 years. Hendon Hooker, I think he got drafted 2 years ago. He on the practice squad. Next year, he gonna be gone. They didn't even bring DTR back and put him on the practice squad. And they drafted him. They're not developing these quarterbacks. It's called draft to destroy. That's what it is. When you have a holistic view, you see it. These black players know what's up, but they don't want to stand up. This is why the NFL treats them as such. I mean, you have to agree, right? I feel like a lot of players coming into the league don't exactly know, right? I think the message about what's happening to Shedeur, what's going to happen in next year's draft, what's happening to the quarterbacks coming out in the first round that are black, Michael Penix Jr. being benched, CJ Stroud being set up with the O line. Same thing with Bryce Young sacked excessively, right? Caleb Williams. It's supposed to deter these black players at the college level. You're supposed to switch off at the high school level and go to college. So that's how you lead and you send the message that we don't appreciate black quarterbacks here. We don't want to draft y'all high. And if so, we're gonna make you compete for your job. We're gonna make it harder for you. We're gonna make it harder for you. And are we gonna pit you against another QB that we want to do it to? We're gonna take one of y'all and not all three. Because once Michael Vick got drafted number 1 overall, that's what opened up the doors toward a lot of black quarterbacks. And the numbers begin to spur on. Well, they pumped the damn brakes in the draft. They gave Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson's MVP. Lamar Jackson, at some point in the offseason, was the number 1 QB. Now he's number 3. Because how can you justify giving it to the number 2? You can't. How can you justify starting 36, 37-year-old Kirk Cousins coming off of an Achilles and overpaying him ungodly amounts of money? But Michael Penix Jr. is better. We weren't supposed to see that. Michael Penix Jr. failed. And because Atlanta knows its fan base, they had no damn choice but to name Penix as the starter. With Kirk Cousins making all that money sitting behind the QB1 as QB2. The Saints know their fan base too. And I think had they named Tyler Shaw the starter, I just felt like it was just going to be a problem. But Stefanski, because he has Haslam's approval. Remember, Haslam is the owner, and the owners took Shedeur off the board. According to Eric Dickerson, they wanted to teach him a lesson. They didn't want to teach him a damn thing because they didn't have to draft him. They drafted to destroy. They drafted knowing they weren't going to give him a fair opportunity. So he don't go to Canada and ball the hell out up there like Warren Moon did. See, they learn from the mistakes of the past, but they just try to switch it up. See, they learn that a black GM would stop the humiliating, embarrassing slide of a black quarterback like Isaac Newsom did as his last activity for the Baltimore Ravens. And they've been colluding against Lamar Jackson ever since. So that's why this time they went to Mike Tomlin and basically intimidated him into not picking Shedeur. But he actually did the right thing because Mike Tomlin knew that what Andrew Berry lured Shedeur to Cleveland for is what they was going to always do. See, Tomlin like, I'm not going to bring him over here, put him behind Aaron Rodgers and treat him like that. But you see, Berry was cool with it. That's why it works in Cleveland. That's why Cleveland is just a trash organization surrounded by white supremacy. Instead, the Falcons are going to not be good this year. I hope so. I hope they be good. I don't want to say they're going to be bad. Micah is going to Green Bay. Has he been traded? I can't watch the NFL if the black players aren't willing to fight. That's why a lot of people checked out after Colin Kaepernick. And to be honest, Shedeur is the reason I actually came back this way. Actually, last year it was Michael Penix Jr. And when I saw that they were playing him with this whole Kirk Cousins gonna be the starter, I checked out. I went to one game. I wanted to see Michael Penix Jr. They didn't play him. Said that Kirk Cousins was a starter. I was out. He did good in the preseason, just like Shedeur, but it didn't matter. Because they didn't want Michael Penix Jr. to be their franchise QB. But they okay with the Johnny Manziels and other people like Trevor Lawrence that just fail over and over. You get to fail if you white as a quarterback. But Geno Smith got to be a journeyman. Tyrod Taylor had to sustain injury and be a journeyman. Lamar Jackson colluded against 3 times. Why they go with the second best QB at the most valuable player. And try to tell you that most valuable does not necessarily mean you're valuable to your team. I'm like, excuse me? The best isn't necessarily valuable to the team. Just keep moving the goalpost. They hate black elite QBs with a passion, right? You could see it. You could see it. So we're gonna get ready to get out of here. So now you have been armed with information, understanding what a fifth round QB's expectation is, what has taken place in the league regarding all the other teams, 31 teams. I'm sure the GMs got together after the owner said, "Hey, I need you to trim the payroll to 3 and 4, so we don't pay $2 million for two people. Instead, we could pay 200,000 for one person on the practice squad." You could see that's the pattern across the league, barring injury or questions at quarterback, but not Cleveland. See, Cleveland got a different setup. They could have cut Shedeur. They could have put Shedeur on the practice squad, but they didn't cut him, and they didn't put Bailey. They went to get Bailey Zapp instead. They still can put Shedeur on the practice squad and Bailey Zapp out there, and they could have all three of their four quarterbacks to be white. So why won't they do it? Because they want Shedeur to dress out so he can play in a game like DTR did, and according to them, fail because they know Kevin Stefanski is going to continue to call plays that set him up to fail. So now you've been on with the information. You know what you're looking at when it's happening. Things will begin to make sense. It won't frustrate you as much. You have a holistic view of the league as it pertains to black quarterbacks, as it pertains to the third and fourth on the depth chart, as it pertains to the practice squad and fifth round QB expectations. Shedeur is only a fifth round QB when they want to try to humiliate him. Understand that. All right, we're going to get out of here. I'll see y'all later tonight at 10:35. We're talking about the Buffs. I think on three, actually, I think agreed that the Buffs are going to win the game. So people are changing their predictions, and they said they changed it because it said year after year since Coach Prime been there, they voted against Coach Prime and end up looking silly. So they said this time they're going to go in with Coach Prime as the winner for this game. So we're going to see. We're going to see. So we'll be back tonight. Again, everybody's excited because why? Today is Friday Eve. Tomorrow is Friday. Tomorrow is game day. So we'll talk about the schedule they put together. Take a look at where everybody is before we go into the game. And I just like how people are starting to change their projections to see the team, the squad that Colorado put together is better than the one last year. So we should definitely be more than 6-6. And people don't really know Caden. So they're starting to learn that Caden hasn't even shown his full capability since he's been at CU. So look out. All right, y'all. I'll see y'all tonight. Thank you so much. 10:35 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on What She Said Sports. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for watching What She Said Sports. Be sure to join our daily live stream and listen up to What She Said Sports on the go on Spotify. Thank you for watching What She Said Sports. Stay for another video.